the Jubilee is coming. Oh, the Jubilee is coming.
Welcome back to The Aquarian Spirit, How to Survive the Apocalypse. I'm going to start today's episode with a quick song, and just a little bit of it. It's a new song called Day of the Fool, and the first stanza is really important to what we're talking about today. Oh, what an idiot, everyone said as she left, walking away into the sunset off of a cliff, foolish endeavors, never the cleverest to the unwise, but they don't know it. Mama bird left, so we all have to fly. I'm about to sneeze. So, that song is called Day of the Fool. The lyrics are, oh, what an idiot, everyone said, just as she left, walking away into the sunset off of a cliff. Foolish endeavors, never the cleverest to the unwise. But they don't know that Mama Bird left, so we all need to fly. Coming out of the age of Pisces like we are doing right now, where we sort of live at the end. I think people know that there is a very big ending happening right now. There are many, many dying faiths of the world, and Christianity attendance is plummeting. People are leaving faith en masse. They don't trust organized religion anymore. And as people have left, the leadership has been taken over by more and more corrupt people, leading to more and more corruption and more people leaving. So, okay, well, that's all well and good, but a lot of people are really frightened by that because they see that those institutions are the only way that they can reach God. And I would like to introduce a concept called spiritual free agency, where an individual can think of themselves only as the church and go from institution to institution, sort of hopping like a frog from lily pad to lily pad, getting what they need and then leaving, almost like scavenging those dying and dead institutions to get the pieces that they need and then put them together. This was my path. I didn't really intentionally set out to be some sort of scavenger of world religions, but that's what happened. So I was raised a Christian, then I became an atheist, then I became a mystic. I've studied also Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism, paganism, tribal practices, shamanism, and I took a piece from here, a piece from there, a piece from there, a piece from there, thinking of myself as a free agent, as if I don't really belong to any of those systems. Now, a problem that can arise with this kind of thing is that there are a lot of people in those systems who are really just looking for strong people to wander into their doors so they can feed off of those people. And so what one might have to do is go in knowing that there are people looking to feed on you, but then knowing that where the exits are, getting what you need, and then vamoosing. I don't know if I can use the gerund form of vamoose. Vamoosar, vamoosing. Anyway, So I had to do that repeatedly. And like my song, "Oh, what an idiot," everyone said just as she left, walking away into the sunset off of a cliff, I knew that I had found something. I knew that I had found all that I could find within that faith tradition. And then I left, and I was often attacked, ridiculed, called a fool, called an idiot, irresponsible. What are you doing? But at the end of my journey, I was able to put all of those different pieces together and make some kind of connection to God. And I wouldn't say that the way that I put together my church, my sort of Frankenstein's monster, and I know that's not the best metaphor, but that's all we're working with right now. We need to be very realistic. If we think about the Buddha specifically, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, who lived about 2,500 years ago, he was coming out of a very, very old tradition that was mostly passed down orally in India, and he had lived life after life within a system that did support people pursuing the spiritual path. And so he was able to really focus lifetime after lifetime on being a very powerful, enlightened individual. Nowadays, that's a very, very difficult and tricky thing. Those faith traditions have largely fallen apart, and so from lifetime to lifetime, you might end up in situations where there is no faith tradition, or you're just expected to have a day job and work full-time in a very practical, real world, well, this world kind of way. And so this creates a problem nowadays where people are constantly striving to be like the Buddha, but they don't have the resources to be like the Buddha. They don't have a whole monastic sangha that's going to support them. There might be some people that are able to somehow get to those monastic lives, but that's a very, very small percentage of humanity. And I am not as cynical as to think that God is only accessible for a very, very small amount of society. So I propose a new path for the rather severe world that we live in today, where one must be like a scavenger, going from institution to institution, sort of like the junkyard of old dead gods, taking this piece, okay, I got that piece, oh, I need a little bit of that, oh, this one still works, I can rehabilitate that, and then building your vehicle out of pieces of that old, dead, those junkyards, basically. So I call it spiritual free agency, or being a scavenger for God. What this mindset did for me is help me to be much more practical about how it would not look exactly like what the Buddha's life looked like, or even other later spiritual masters, where there was a whole system set up to support those few people so they could spend their whole time turning over and connecting with God. And those support structures have crumbled into the ground, and now they are like junkyards. And so what is the reality now is that people might not like you might be unpopular from time to time, you might have to leave a cult, you might have to join a cult sometimes, especially earlier in life, because you don't have any options. You might go to a church because you feel like you might meet somebody there, and then once you get what you need, move on. You might use a Buddhist meditation group because there is something you can get out of it there, and then realize you always sort of have one foot in and one foot out, knowing that those institutions are crumbling and that it's more important to safeguard your own personal agency, your own church within, rather than trying to find the best institution or the best system that will somehow be able to support you. It's much better to think of yourself as an individual actor these days, because those institutions, those old faiths, those old ways are crumbling, but this is all on time, and this is all making way for something new. And new things are like babies. They're crude, their light might be not fully developed, it might be sporadic, sometimes it's dim, sometimes it's really bright. They might have to be emotional at times. They might not be able to be as committed to the group as possible. There's all kinds of different descriptors and qualities that could be applied to what is being born right now. And so many people are looking back 2,000, 4,000 years for their examples, when those examples are the very end of old systems that are dying. And if you choose to go into those old institutions and think that they will take care of you, you will wake up in a nightmare one day. And I urge you strongly to always sort of think of them as dying, because they will become prisons. And you will be trapped in those institutions. They will suck out your independent spirit and your life force. And we must be real about this. Those institutions do not even want that to be repeated right now. They're going hardcore on propaganda. And even our governments are really the same dying institutions, desperate to make those last few strong people think that they are safe in those institutions. The good, strong people that are left need to make their way into the desert with scavenging the parts they need to construct a church of one within themselves. And if anyone comes to you in any institution and says, this is the only system, run away screaming. And I know that I'm saying, hey, I have a system and it's pretty good. But my system is very eclectic. My system is very pragmatic. It's going to look very different for you. It looked different for me. I'm really just talking about big picture kinds of things. And I don't know what the best system will look like for you. I just urge you to give yourself the freedom and the flexibility to follow a feeling of joy, follow a feeling of being alive. It might take you into places that don't seem very spiritual at all. And you might have to make some U-turns, you might have to zig and zag, you might have to cut yourself out of cult-like social groups, and the only way to know if you're on that right path is to listen to the voice within. And so I got to where I am because I listened to myself, and I was able to squirm out of really negative attachments that were desperately trying to feed off of me. This is kind of the time of zombies, and it's like those movies didn't get made for no reason. There are a lot of people who did not do the work over many lifetimes. They expected those institutions to care for them. And suddenly those institutions like governments and churches are depleted because everything is born, lives, and dies. And those people are desperate and they're looking, all they know how to do is feed off of other people, which is very unfortunate. But if you still remember how to ignite your own fire, how to create joy in your life, how to connect to God, be real about what is going on, understand that your path might be eclectic and you might have to scavenge some parts at junkyards of old dead religions. Carry the light you can carry, knowing that sometimes it will be low. These are lean times. Survive with the light that you can carry, and it will grow eventually. As these old institutions fail, what becomes priority number one is just survival. It's not being the Buddha. It's not walking on water. It's not flying into the sky. It is surviving with your fire intact. It will not always be this desperate. It will not always be, you will not always have to have so many defenses up. But right now, that's what's going on. So there is a way. There's a way to make joy. And I hope you come back for the next episode and subscribe. And I love you. And let's continue to burn and make fires in the world. Oh, somebody died today. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole. Oh, somebody died today. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole.